Welcome to 4 Strong and Growing. I'm Alexa and I'm a stay-at-home mom of 3 babies, 1 literal baby and 2 older children, but they will all be my babies forever, you know? Today is my 2-month postpartum video. I want to go over my mental and physical health, including a belly shot, along with any updates that I have about my 2-month-old baby, Noelle. I documented my entire pregnancy with her and her birth here on YouTube. All the videos are in a playlist called My Third Pregnancy, Noelle. I'll link it in the description. For reference, I had an unmedicated vaginal delivery in a hospital. I gained 33 pounds over the course of this 39-week pregnancy, going from 102 pounds to 135 pounds. And when Noelle was born, she was 7 pounds, 1 ounce. And thankfully, there were no complications. Okay, now let's get into my symptoms, being 2 months postpartum. Starting at week 4, I just have 2 updates. Number 1, still bleeding. In my last video, I know I said I stopped bleeding. I had to edit in a little correction saying, actually, joking, I started bleeding again. So it had stopped for maybe a day or 2, and then it came back. My second update is that my boobs are huge. You could probably guess that's from my milk coming in. I do have breast implants, so it's kind of weird to feel my actual true breast tissue growing on top of the implants. But yeah, my boobs have gotten quite a lot bigger. And yes, in case you didn't know, because I don't think most people think about this, you can breastfeed with breast implants and it doesn't affect your milk supply as long as you get your implants inserted in a certain way. There's an incision that goes around the areola, and if you do that sort of incision, it can damage some of the milk ducts. But if you get the incision like I got underneath the fold of the breasts, then it doesn't damage any of those milk ducts. So if you didn't know, now you know. At 6 weeks postpartum, I finally felt like I had a really good routine. A routine with me, a routine with the baby, just as a household. I think 6 weeks is a pretty average amount of time just to get into a routine in general. Like if you start a new job, you'll feel pretty new until about 6 weeks in. Or like a new school year, you'll feel like really settled into your classes and like the friend group that you've made at the 6-week mark. For some reason, just throughout life, I feel like that's a pretty standard amount of time to start feeling like you're actually in the groove and in the routine of things. So if you are not at the 6-week postpartum mark yet and you're feeling really distressed and really unorganized and like, oh my gosh, when is this going to end? I would say aim for 6 weeks. That's when things really start to feel better. Because no matter how many babies you have, this is my 3rd baby, it's different. Each baby is different and she's learning me and I'm learning her. It's not like, oh, I've had a baby before, so I know everything and this is going to be super easy. I know a lot of things. I know generally what I'm supposed to be doing, but there is still a sort of learning curve with each new baby because they are their own people. My next update is that I reek of milk. I remember this happening with Adalia, who is my first baby. So that was 8 years ago. My very best friend in the whole world babysat her for me when she was too young to go to daycare, but I still had to go to school. Have friends like that who will babysit your brand new baby, even though she was like 19 or 20. We were so young. But I remember when I came back to pick Adalia up, my friend was just like, she reeks of your milk. And it really does have a smell. I'm personally not a fan of the smell. Obviously, my friend wasn't a fan of the smell either. But this time around, I didn't smell anything until about that 6-week mark. I don't know if just like colostrum doesn't usually have a smell and maybe transitional milk doesn't have a smell either. I never paid attention to that. But at the 6-week mark, I definitely had my mature milk in. It just smelled. Or the other possibility is that there was a change in my diet, possibly, that caused my milk to smell a certain way, but I don't really feel like I changed my diet. So I don't know what that's all about, but either way, I feel like I smell and it's not a great smell. So if you find yourself catching a whiff of yourself, I especially smell it in the shower when it's getting like hot and steamy in there. If you're also finding that you smell a little bit, you're not alone. I don't really know how to make it go away, but I at least want you to know that you're not alone. During this week, I was able to fit back into my pre-pregnancy jeans, which were a size 2, and I was squeezed into them, but they did fit. It wasn't too much of a squeeze. Like I could wear them out and not bust out of them. I could eat a meal and not bust out of them. So I'm gonna count it as officially fitting back into my jeans, which doesn't matter. I know I'm talking about weights and like how much weight I gained and how much weight I'm losing and fitting back into jeans. And this is not to say that you should be doing this. I'm just telling you everything that I've noticed for myself, just to give you an idea of what my experience is like and possibly what your experience might be as well. Also, in my last video, I was talking about how my poop teared me open. We get really personal on this channel. Yeah, I had like a Godzilla poop that tore me open, and at this 6-week mark, my poops were finally getting more comfortable. So that is quite a relief. I stopped taking my Colace and everything. So, you know, drinking my water and eating fruit was enough to keep things moving on through, and it allowed my body, I guess, enough time to heal so that it didn't hurt every single time I was having a bowel movement. Also this week, I officially stopped bleeding. So that was January 4th. Woohoo! Stopped wearing pads and everything. I feel like that took a lot longer this time than I was expecting because the bleeding was so light. Like all through the first month, I really thought it was just going to go away within that first 4 weeks, but it just kept on lingering on. And sometimes it would even get heavier, and then sometimes it would get lighter, but it officially went away during that 6-week mark. Also, during week number 6, I noticed that my belly button was starting to flip back in the right way. Ever since I got to a certain point in my pregnancy, my belly button turned out like a convex belly button, which is normal. I feel like that happens to pretty much everybody, I think. And then after giving birth, it's still kind of convex like that for a while. And then it takes about 6 to 8 weeks for the uterus to shrink back down to its original size after giving birth. So that makes sense that my belly button was finally starting to come back in concave at the 6-week mark. At 7 weeks postpartum, I felt like my skin was finally starting to clear up. This is a personal problem for me that I probably feel like a lot of new moms can relate to. I have been struggling with my hygiene, which is a little bit embarrassing, a little bit gross, but it just is what it is. Like, I have not been showering every single day. I have not been doing my hair. This is one of maybe 4 or 5 times that I've done my hair in the past 2 months. Brushing my teeth, flossing, mouthwash. It's happening about once a day, usually not twice a day, which is not great, especially because I'm just prone to getting cavities anyway. So that might also be part of the reason why I started to break out. It was definitely partially due to hormones and probably partially due to the fact that I wasn't washing my face as well, and I just wasn't on my skin routine. So usually I will wash my face in the morning with a hydrating CeraVe cleanser, and then at night I use an oil and then a foaming CeraVe cleanser, but I have not been doing that. Usually just washing my face once a day or not even every day. But at the 7-week mark, I feel like my skin has finally pretty much gone back to normal, even though I'm still not really doing my skincare routine as often as I should be. Then I started spotting. And I know you're probably thinking, but you just said that you had stopped bleeding. Yep, I did stop bleeding. And then I started bleeding again. So just like that, I was bleeding again. And I think that this might have actually been my period. There are 2 options that I can think of. Either this is my period that I started and I could literally have been pregnant with another baby right now, which is so insane to think. I cannot even imagine being pregnant again right now. It is just way too soon. Second option is that it's still a continuation of this postpartum bleeding, and maybe it's just when I'm more active, I start bleeding more, and when I'm allowing myself to have more rest, I'm not bleeding as much, and then it will even stop for a few days. So I don't really know which one it is. It's really hard to tell when your period officially comes back after having a baby because of the postpartum bleeding, but my guess would be that this is actually my period. So there's that. Need to be careful now. On the 10th, I had my first migraine postpartum. In case you don't know, I tend to get migraines usually about 1 every like 2 to 3 months, and they affect my vision and they hurt really bad. So I'm not new to migraines. Sometimes postpartum, people who have never gotten a migraine in their whole life will start getting migraines, and there's a few different reasons for that. You can Google it. One of those reasons being getting an epidural during your labor and delivery. However, I don't think that those migraines necessarily happen this far out into postpartum. I think it's more in the first like 2 or 3 weeks that people will have migraines associated with being postpartum. So I would say that this is just a normal migraine that I had and not related to being postpartum whatsoever. Also on the 10th, I was supposed to go to my 7-week postpartum doctor's appointment to get checked. Usually it's at 6 weeks, but my doctor was on vacation during my 6th week, so I had to schedule my appointment for my 7th week postpartum. If you saw my last video, then you would already know, but I was actually sitting in the waiting room waiting to go into that appointment, and I got the worst phone call of my life that my mom had passed away. So I ended up not going into that appointment. I just went straight home. So as far as getting my body checked, technically that never happened. I would assume that I'm good to go back to my regular daily activities and good to exercise, but technically I did not get cleared by my doctor yet. Physically, I feel great. Really, the only thing that had been bothering me the last few weeks was my bowel movements, but like I said, that kind of fixed itself at the 6-week mark, luckily. So other than that, I feel totally back to normal, and I have just been going about my life as usual now, and so far nothing bad has happened, so I think that that's okay. So because my mom passed away, I ended up flying to New York with my whole family to go to her funeral. So that means that I was traveling and breastfeeding and pumping. So that was a totally new experience that I was not expecting to have, as you can imagine. Luckily, breastfeeding has become a lot more comfortable. Noelle had a little bit of latch issues in the beginning where she was really hurting me, and I can't tell exactly what was wrong with her latch because she didn't have a tongue tie, she didn't have like the upper lip tie, and you know, in the hospital, multiple people, lactation consultants, nurses, a whole bunch of different people literally witnessed her feeding on me and said, yep, that looks perfect. And it doesn't hurt if we only do a little bit of breastfeeding. It's if I exclusively breastfeed her, eventually I just get so sore. I feel like she's just rough. Like the way she sucks and she kind of chomps down when she's sucking, she's a little rough. And it ends up hurting if I do it too much. But during this trip, I was breastfeeding her a lot. I brought my pump with me, but I just ended up breastfeeding her more than I was actually pumping because of convenience. And I think now that she's a little bit bigger and we're both a little bit more used to each other, breastfeeding was going a lot better. And in case you're wondering, she did amazing on the plane. The first flight there was a red-eye flight overnight, and she just slept the whole time, waking up like every 4 hours to eat. And then the second flight was during the middle of the day, and I was really nervous about that one because she's quite active during her awake time now, and I was worried that I wouldn't be able to keep her occupied on the plane, especially not being able to change her environment. She really needs mental stimulation. She does not like to be in the same place for too long. So I was worried. The flight coming back was also longer than it was going there. Going there, it was 3 hours, 45 minutes, and coming back, it was closer to 5 hours. But she ended up doing really well, even on that flight. She was watching the TVs, and I think she liked that we each had a different movie or TV show on our screens. So she was just happy doing that and then taking naps in my lap. I did hold her for probably about 6 or 7 hours straight between going through the airport, being on the flight, and then walking through the next airport to get back to our car. So my arm was killing me. We didn't bring a stroller, so I just held her the whole time. All things considered, it actually went really well. I was also really nervous because it's RSV season, and she was literally 1.5, almost 2 months old. Going on a plane, being in dirty airports, seeing a bunch of, relatives at the funeral and everything. So I was really worried about her getting sick, but so far everything is okay. I don't know. I guess I'm just really grateful that none of us got sick. And if you're wondering about the other 2 kids on the plane, because it was also Adalia and Copeland's first time on a plane, they also did really well. Everyone on the plane, you could tell they were looking at us like, oh geez, look at this family coming onto the plane with 3 kids, a newborn baby. This is going to be a horrible flight. And then by the end of it, they were like, my kids would only do that if I gave them Valium. How did you get your kids to behave that well? I don't know. I guess I have a few little travelers on my hands. That's actually good because we're planning on going to Disney in Florida over the summer. So now that we know that they're good on a flight, the trip to Disney shouldn't be that bad. Anyway, I went off on a huge tangent there. My main point was that breastfeeding is getting easier. My nipples are toughening up even more. And also I think between me and Noelle just getting used to each other a little bit more and her getting bigger, it's just more comfortable now. So that brings us to 8 weeks postpartum, which is 2 months. I'm still bleeding with that possible continuation of postpartum bleeding. Okay, now I want to talk more about my mental health. As you can imagine, this was an extremely difficult month for me. There's a lot of challenges with being postpartum and grieving, especially grieving my mom while also being a mom, having to be called mom every single day, multiple times a day, hearing mom, 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 mom. It's something that I never really thought about. As far as the grieving process goes, if you want to know more about exactly how I'm doing with like my grieving process and everything, my last video that I posted is probably more informative than this one is going to be. I don't want to like rehash everything that I already talked about. So just know that I'm doing okay. I'm going through the process. Every day is getting a little bit better. I'm trying to keep myself a healthy amount of busy. That's why I'm continuing to do these videos. My mom was my #1 fan of this channel. So I know some of you guys probably want to comment like, take some time off. You don't need to be uploading. And I totally understand that, but this actually makes me really happy connecting with other moms and soon-to-be moms. And this is what my mom would have wanted me to do. She watched every single one of these videos and would comment on them and text me immediately after watching them. That's why I'm continuing to make my videos. It's keeping my mind somewhat off of things and helping me just stay in a healthy place. So that's where I am with my mental health. Okay, the last thing about me that I want to show you is my belly shot. So I did this last month too, and I think you'll be able to see a surprising amount of change in my tummy between last month and this month. So let me just go ahead and show you. Well, actually, disclaimer, I am not doing this to show off or to say that you should be looking like this at 2 months postpartum. I'm literally doing this for people who are just curious or people who literally have no idea what a postpartum body looks like, whether that be men and normalizing like, hey, this is what a normal woman looks like after she has a baby and it's beautiful, or to women who maybe are about to be a first-time mom or they're just curious, you know what I mean, of what happens. I certainly did not know what a postpartum body looked like until I was pregnant and watching videos of other moms here on YouTube, and they were vulnerable enough to show the world what their bodies looked like. And I'm so appreciative of them for that, for educating me and making me not feel alone back in those days. So I am paying it forward, and I am doing that for anyone else who is interested. If you don't look like this, it is totally fine. This is just to show you what I look like. So let's take a look, shall we? Move my hair out of the way, you guys. I need a haircut. My hair is getting so long. Okay, anyway. So from the side, I think is where you can see most of the change from last time to this time. It's flattened out quite a bit in my opinion, but it still is jiggly. I still have a lot of like extra flabby skin there, but it's definitely tightening up slowly but surely. When I tighten my muscles, this is what it looks like. And then that's what it looks like when I'm not tightening my muscles. From the front, you can see I still have like kind of a pouch down here, extra skin, and this is totally normal. And that is what an actual 2-month postpartum body looks like. As far as diet, I never know how to say this word, diastasis recti, but it's a separation of your abdominal muscles. I feel like I might have it a little bit up here. I don't feel it down here so much, but I think like right above my belly button, there's a little bit of separation there. But if you guys remember, my belly was so distended. Like, I don't know how it could not rip my muscles apart. So that's not surprising that I feel a little bit of separation there. And I think there are certain exercises you can do to pull the muscles back together. At this point, I'm not really interested in doing that. I'm not a big exercise girly in general, so that is my postpartum belly. Now let's move on to Noelle and things that have changed for her in this past month. So one thing that's kind of cool that happened, I've never heard of this before, but apparently it's fairly common. Noelle had an umbilical granuloma. When the umbilical cord was cut and then the stump was healing, it healed almost all the way. Like it healed like 95% of the way, but then there was this little red bump that just would not heal, and it leaked the tiniest amount of discharge onto her undershirt, and I would just see it every time I changed her diaper or changed her outfit. So I gave it time to heal on its own, and then it got to a point where I was like, okay, this should definitely be healed by now. So I brought her into the pediatrician. He explained that number one, it wasn't infected, which was good. I didn't think it was infected, otherwise I would have brought her in even sooner than that. He said that basically what it was an overreaction of the body to healing that wound. Unfortunately, it just makes it not heal. That's kind of a horrible explanation of what it is. I'll put a description of what an umbilical granuloma is here because it's actually fairly common, and the treatment was so easy. He mixed up this silver nitrate. He activated it some way, like in this tube, and then he just dotted it right onto the spot that needed to be healed. And it healed within a few days. I didn't have to do anything at home, and it's just a one-time treatment. He said that if it didn't heal on its own, that at her 2-month appointment, they could do another round of the silver nitrate, but it healed on its own. So that was really quick and easy. A sad update is that she grew out of her newborn diapers and her newborn onesies and undershirts, and she grew out of her little bassinet, and now she's just sleeping in the crib. So this little girl is getting a lot bigger. At that appointment where we brought her to get her belly button looked at, she was 9 pounds 4 ounces. She is getting so big. I see it. Like I literally see her getting bigger, which I feel like you don't really usually see because you're with them all the time. But I can literally see her growing. She's growing like a weed. The only other update that I had about her was that she went on an airplane for the first time, which is so crazy. And then she has her 2-month appointment coming up in about a week. That is this entire video. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed it, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. I see that a lot of people who are watching these videos aren't subscribed. So if you want to help me out and help out my tiny little channel, please subscribe and share this video with someone who you think would be interested in it. And I will see you in the next one. Bye.